What does it mean to be whole when the world tells you that you're incomplete? It is a question that lives quietly in the hearts of Maya and Lara Santos, conjoined twin sisters born in a small fishing town in the Philippines. From the moment they opened their eyes, they were greeted not with celebration, but with whispers that grew into stares, and stares that turned into judgment. Yet through it all, the sisters never once believed themselves to be broken. To them, they were not two halves, but one unshakable bond. From childhood, the world reminded them of their difference. Strangers paused in the marketplace, children giggled in the schoolyard, and neighbors spoke in hushed tones. But inside the walls of their modest home, built on love more than brick, Maya and Lara found a place where their spirits could sing. Music became their escape, their secret language, and their greatest source of freedom. It wasn't just their voices that made them special, it was the way they blended together, one gentle and pure, the other strong and unyielding. Their song carried the echo of their struggles, the heartbeat of their father's sacrifices, and the quiet hope of their mother's prayers. And now, thousands of miles away from that little town, these sisters step onto the grand stage of America's Got Talent. The lights are blinding, the audience vast, and the air heavy with anticipation. They are not just contestants tonight. They are symbols of resilience, of courage, of love that cannot be divided. As the cameras turn and the world leans closer, the question lingers in the air like a fragile thread. Will the world see them for who they truly are? Not as girls fused by fate, but as souls united by music. This is not just another audition. This is a story waiting to unfold, one that will test the boundaries of judgment, reveal the strength of acceptance, and remind every heart watching that sometimes the most extraordinary beauty comes from what we once thought was broken. In the quiet corners of their small Philippine town, life for Maya and Lara Santos was shaped by struggle. Their father, Ramon, rose before dawn each day, starting his tricycle with weary hands that knew only labor. He carried passengers across dusty roads for a few pesos, each ride a step toward putting rice on the family's worn wooden table. Their mother, Eliza, spent long nights bent over a sewing machine, stitching fabric by the faint glow of a flickering bulb, her eyes tired but determined. Though the family's means were scarce, their love was boundless. Yet for Maya and Lara, the world outside their home was far less forgiving. At school, classmates often stared too long, whispers rippling through the classroom like cold wind. Some avoided sitting near them, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to understand. The twins felt the sting of isolation, yet they never let it crush their spirit. Instead, they clung to each other more tightly, finding strength in a bond no one else could ever break. When the weight of the world pressed too heavily, the girls found refuge in song. In the evenings, when Ramon returned home tired and Eliza put aside her sewing, the family would gather in their tiny living room. There, with voices soft at first, the twins would sing. Their melodies rose above the noise of hardship, weaving warmth into the air. Maya's gentle tone would carry innocence, while Lara's stronger voice added depth and courage. Together, they created harmony that felt like a prayer that tomorrow might be kinder. Music became more than a pastime. It was survival. It drowned out the whispers of neighbors, softened the ache of poverty, and reminded them all that even in brokenness, beauty could bloom. Their father would often close his eyes, listening as if the weight on his shoulders lifted with each note. In those small, fragile moments, the twins discovered a truth. They were not defined by what the world called a limitation. They were defined by the love they carried in their voices, a love that could never be separated. The night of their audition arrived with a kind of electricity that could not be ignored. The stage of America's Got Talent was bathed in golden light, its vastness both inviting and intimidating. For Maya and Lara, stepping onto it felt like stepping into another world, one far away from the dusty streets of their small town, one where millions of eyes would soon rest upon them. As they moved forward, the air seemed still. They were not alone. Raymond, their father, stood just beyond the curtains, his hands pressed together, silently praying for strength to steady his daughters. The camera caught his eyes glistening, not with fear, but with pride. The sisters held hands, not because they had to, but because they chose to. It was a gesture of comfort, of courage, of unity. In that single clasp, they carried years of struggle, sacrifice, and song. Before them, the judges sat waiting. Simon Cowell's gaze was sharp, searching, while the audience leaned forward, unsure of what to expect from these two young girls who had already captured the room with their presence. The first note fell softly, like a fragile whisper carried through the air. Maya's gentle voice began, delicate yet pure, trembling only for a moment before finding its strength. Then Lara followed, her tone strong, rich, anchoring her sister's melody like roots to a tree. The harmony rose slowly, unfolding like dawn across a darkened sky. The audience shifted, then stilled, as if caught in a trance. Each note wove a thread, binding strangers to their story without a single word of explanation. The music did the speaking, carrying the ache of their childhood, the hope of their parents, and the unbreakable love between two sisters who were never meant to be apart. For a moment, the world inside that theater felt suspended in time. Judges blinked back tears, viewers held their breath, and even Simon's hardened expression softened, his eyes shimmering as if caught off guard by the sheer depth of what he was witnessing. The twins were no longer just contestants. The final note lingered in the air like a fragile flame refusing to die. For a heartbeat, the vast theater fell into absolute silence. It was as if the world itself had paused to honor what had just been born on that stage. And then, the silence shattered an eruption of applause rising like a tidal wave. The audience leapt to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping tears from their cheeks. Strangers who moments ago had never met now shared the same astonishment, bound together by the power of two voices that sang as one. The judges, too, were visibly moved. Sophia's hands covered her mouth, Heidi's eyes glistened with emotion. But it was Simon, the man known for his steel-like composure, his sharp critiques, his unwillingness to show weakness who could not hold back. His eyes were wet, his lips trembling as if words had abandoned him. For years he had seen thousands of acts, but this was different. This was not just music, this was a miracle. As the sisters stood, their hands still clasped, confetti had not yet fallen, but hope already filled the air. And then, it happened. Slowly, almost reverently, Simon reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. A burst of golden light and glittering confetti rained down upon Maya and Lara. The audience roared louder, the cheers thundering through the hall. The sisters looked upward, their faces bathed in gold, their tears catching the light like stars. Their father, watching from the wings, buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the moment he had long dreamed of but never thought possible. In that single press of a button, their lives changed forever. It was not just approval, it was acceptance. It was the world finally seeing them not as fragile, not as strange, not as incomplete, but as extraordinary. As the golden storm settled, the sisters stood at the center of the stage, hearts pounding, eyes wide. Their song now a memory, but their impact eternal. They had not only won the golden buzzer, they had touched the soul of millions. The golden confetti slowly drifted to the ground, but the echo of that night continued to rise far beyond the walls of the theater. Within hours, the performance of Maya and Lara Santos spread across the world. Screens lit up in living rooms, phones buzzed with notifications, and strangers found themselves pausing, captivated by the sight of two sisters who had turned their pain into something unshakably beautiful. In small towns and big cities alike, families gathered together to watch the replay. Mothers pulled their children close, fathers sat in quiet reflection, and people who had never stepped foot in the Philippines found themselves wiping tears from their eyes. It wasn't just a performance anymore, it was a message. A reminder that courage comes not from perfection, but from love that refuses to be broken. For Maya and Lara, the stage had been a dream, but now, it was something greater. They had become voices for everyone who had ever been told they were less than, for every child who had felt the weight of being different, for every family that had struggled to keep hope alive in the face of hardship. Their music carried across oceans, reminding humanity that true wholeness comes not from the body, but from the soul. Ramon, their father, could hardly believe the letters and messages that poured in. People wrote of how the twins' song had lifted them from despair, how it had given them the courage to face their own challenges. From hospital rooms to classrooms, from broken homes to joyful ones, their voices were now a thread weaving the world closer together. And through it all, Maya and Lara never saw themselves as heroes. To them they were simply sisters, two halves of one heart, singing the only way they knew how. But to the millions who watched, they were proof that miracles still walk among us. Their journey was far from over. Yet even if the stage lights dimmed and the applause faded, one truth would remain. They had shown the world that love, when shared in its purest form, can turn even the most fragile of voices into a symphony of hope.